Most people never truly live their lives. They move through days on autopilot, waking up tired, reacting emotionally, chasing comfort, and repeating the same patterns year after year. They believe circumstances control them. They believe other people control them. They believe life is something that simply happens. But the truth is uncomfortable. The greatest prison you will ever face is not built of walls. It is built of habits, unchecked thoughts, and emotional reactions you never questioned. From the moment you wake up, your mind is already running, replaying memories, imagining problems, creating fear, and demanding stimulation. Without awareness, you obey every thought as if it were truth, and slowly, without realizing it, your life becomes a reflection of that chaos. This moment is different, because awareness changes everything. The instant you begin to observe your thoughts instead of identifying with them, you create distance. And in that distance, something powerful happens. You regain choice. You are no longer trapped inside the noise. You are standing above it. Your thoughts shape your emotions. Your emotions drive your actions. Your actions, repeated daily, build your destiny. This is not philosophy. This is mechanics. If you do not control your mind will control you. It will drag you into anger, insecurity, comparison, distraction, and fear. It will convince you that discipline is suffering and comfort is safety. And without noticing, you will live far below your potential. This hour is not meant to entertain you. It is meant to interrupt your patterns. If you stay present, if you listen not just with your ears, but with your awareness, this can become the turning point where your life stops reacting and starts responding, where confusion gives way to clarity, where power begins to return. Change does not start with force. It starts with seeing clearly. And that is where everything begins. The mind is the most sophisticated tool ever given to a human being. Yet most people receive it without instruction and spend their entire lives being used by it. An untrained mind is restless. It jumps from thought to thought, desire to desire, fear to fear. It reacts instantly to provocation, a comment, a look, a memory, and suddenly emotion takes control. Anger rises, anxiety tightens the chest, insecurity whispers lies. This is not strength. This is slavery. A trained mind is different. It is calm under pressure. It observes before it reacts. It chooses restraint over impulse, discipline over comfort, clarity over chaos. When you feel anger, it is not the situation controlling you. It is your mind interpreting the situation without awareness. When you feel anxiety, it is not the future attacking you. It is your imagination running without supervision. Control does not mean suppression. Suppression creates pressure. Pressure eventually explodes. Control means understanding. When you understand your mind, you stop fighting it. You begin guiding it. You recognize patterns before they take over. You notice emotional waves rising, and instead of drowning, you stand steady. This is how calm becomes power. The person who can remain centered while others lose control holds invisible authority. They speak less, react less, and yet their presence is felt immediately. They are not driven by approval, fear, or emotion. They are anchored. Most people try to change their external life, new goals, new habits, new identities, without mastering the internal environment that produces all behavior. This is why change never lasts. Once you train the mind, everything else follows naturally. Focus becomes sharper, decisions become cleaner, Emotions stop controlling direction. Your mind can either be your sharpest weapon or your greatest enemy. The difference is training. And training begins with awareness, practiced daily, without negotiation. Most people believe discipline is a form of punishment. They see it as restriction, as pressure, as something that removes pleasure from life. Because of this belief, they run from it. They avoid structure. They resist routine. They chase motivation instead of building commitment. But this misunderstanding costs them everything. Discipline is not about forcing yourself to suffer. It is about removing chaos. Without discipline, your day is controlled by mood. When you feel good, you act. When you feel tired, bored, or uncomfortable, you stop. This creates a life that is inconsistent, unstable, and weak. True freedom does not come from doing whatever you want in the moment. It comes from having the power to do what must be done, regardless of how you feel. When you train discipline, you reclaim ownership of your time, your energy, and your attention. You decide when to wake up, when to focus, when to rest, and when to push forward. You stop negotiating with weakness. At first, discipline feels uncomfortable. This is because your mind has been conditioned to seek ease and avoid resistance. But every time you choose discipline over impulse, you strengthen your inner authority. Slowly, something changes. Your confidence no longer depends on results. It comes from self-respect. You trust yourself because you keep your word to yourself, and that trust creates calm. A disciplined mind is not rigid. It is stable. It does not panic under pressure. It does not collapse when motivation disappears. This is why disciplined people appear calm, grounded, and powerful. Their peace is not accidental, it is earned. Freedom is not found in indulgence. Freedom is found in mastery. And mastery begins the moment you stop asking how you feel and start asking who you choose to become. Many people confuse emotional control with emotional suppression. They believe that being calm means being cold, detached, or disconnected. This belief keeps them trapped, either overwhelmed by emotion or afraid of their own intensity. But true emotional control is neither suppression nor avoidance. It is understanding. Emotions are signals, not commands. They rise, they peak, and they fall if you allow them to move without identifying with them. The problem begins when emotion becomes identity. I am angry. I am anxious. I am afraid. These statements turn temporary states into permanent prisons. A trained mind does something different. It says, there is anger. There is anxiety. There is fear. This subtle shift creates distance, and distance creates choice. When you no longer fuse with emotion, you stop reacting unconsciously. You pause, you breathe, you observe, and in that pause, you regain control. Emotional mastery does not mean you feel less. It means you are no longer ruled by what you feel. This is what allows a person to remain calm in conflict, clear in pressure, and centered in chaos. While others lose themselves in reaction, you remain present. That presence is power. People feel it immediately, not because you dominate, but because you are unshaken. An emotionally controlled mind does not seek validation. It does not need to prove itself. It does not explode when challenged. Instead, it responds with precision. Most conflicts in life are not caused by external events, but by internal mismanagement. When emotions are unmanaged, relationships suffer, decisions weaken, and progress slows. Once you master your emotional responses, life becomes quieter, clearer, more intentional. You stop wasting energy on reactions that do not serve you. And that energy, once reclaimed, becomes focus, purpose, and strength. The ego speaks constantly. It compares, it defends, it demands recognition and fears rejection. Most people mistake this voice for themselves. They believe every thought, every emotional reaction, every urge to prove or protect defines who they are. But the ego is not your identity. It is a survival mechanism shaped by experience, conditioning, and fear. The ego wants comfort, certainty, and control. It reacts instantly when it feels threatened. A disagreement becomes a personal attack. A failure becomes a story of inadequacy. A success becomes something to protect at all costs. This constant tension drains your energy. When you live through the ego, your mind is never at rest. There is always something to defend, always someone to impress, always a narrative to maintain. Awareness breaks this cycle. The moment you observe the ego instead of obeying it, its power weakens. You notice the urge to react. You see the desire to be right. You feel the pull to seek validation. And instead of acting on it, you pause. That pause is freedom. The ego cannot survive without attention. When you stop feeding it, it quiets down. This does not mean you become passive or weak. It means you become precise. You speak when necessary. You act with intention. You stop wasting energy on battles that do not matter. True confidence does not come from ego. It comes from alignment. When your actions match your values, there is no need to prove anything. You become grounded, calm, self-directed. The quieter the ego becomes, the clearer your mind grows. And in that clarity, you begin to experience something rare in modern life: inner silence. Silence is uncomfortable for most people, not because silence is dangerous, but because it reveals what the mind has been hiding. In silence, there is no distraction, no noise to escape into, no stimulation to numb awareness. This is why people avoid it. They fill every moment with sound, movement, and information. But a constantly stimulated mind never rests, and a restless mind cannot see clearly. Silence is not the absence of sound. It is the absence of unnecessary mental activity. When you allow moments of stillness, you begin to notice how much energy has been leaking through constant thinking, reacting, and worrying. In silence, the mind resets. The nervous system calms. Perspective returns. This is where self-control is rebuilt. A silent mind responds instead of reacts. It listens more than it speaks. It chooses words carefully. Silence sharpens perception. You become more aware of your body, your breath, your emotional state. You notice tension before it turns into anger. You recognize fear before it becomes avoidance. This awareness allows correction before damage occurs. In a world that rewards noise, those who can access silence possess a rare advantage. They are not rushed. They are not easily manipulated. They are not overwhelmed. They move with intention. Silence does not make you invisible. It makes you powerful. Because when the mind is still, action becomes precise, effort becomes efficient, presence becomes undeniable. This is why disciplined training always begins and ends in silence, not to escape the world, but to engage it with clarity. In the modern world, focus is under constant attack. Notifications, opinions, comparisons, and endless information compete for your attention every second. Most people believe distraction is harmless, but distraction is the silent thief of life. What you focus on determines what grows. A scattered mind creates scattered results. Energy leaks in all directions. Effort is wasted. Progress feels slow, not because you lack ability, but because your attention is divided. Focus is not about intensity. It is about direction. When you train focus, you decide where your energy goes. You stop reacting to every impulse. You stop chasing every opportunity. You begin choosing deliberately. This is how ordinary effort becomes powerful. A focused mind simplifies life. Priorities become clear. Decisions become faster. Doubt loses its grip. Most people spend their lives reacting to what appears urgent instead of committing to what is important. This creates motion without meaning. True focus requires sacrifice. You must say no to distractions that promise pleasure but deliver emptiness. You must withdraw attention from people, habits, and environments that dilute your clarity. This is not isolation, it is protection. When your focus sharpens, your presence changes. People feel it. They sense your direction. Your words carry weight because they are not scattered. This is why mastery in any discipline looks effortless from the outside. The energy is concentrated. Nothing is wasted. Control your focus, and you control the direction of your life. Lose it, and life controls you. Many people try to change their lives by changing their thoughts. They repeat affirmations, visualize success, and wait to feel different. But identity is not built by thinking. It is built by action. Who you believe yourself to be is shaped by what you repeatedly do, especially when it is difficult, uncomfortable, or unseen. The mind believes evidence, not intention. Every disciplined action sends a signal. This is who I am. Every avoided responsibility sends another. This is who I am not. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your habits. This is why transformation feels slow at first. The old identity resists change. It is familiar. It feels safe. But familiarity is not truth. When you act in alignment with a higher standard, despite discomfort, you create friction. That friction reshapes identity. This is the real work. Not chasing motivation, not waiting for clarity, but acting with precision, even when the mind protests. Over time, something powerful happens. Confidence stops being emotional. It becomes structural. You trust yourself not because you feel strong, but because you behave consistently. Your mind adjusts to your actions, not the other way around. This is how discipline becomes identity. The old version of you dissolves, not through force, but through replacement. It is outgrown, not destroyed. Change does not happen in a single moment. It happens through thousands of small decisions made correctly. And once identity shifts, effort decreases, focus stabilizes, life aligns. Many people misunderstand detachment. They think it means not caring, withdrawing from life, or becoming emotionally distant. But true detachment is not disengagement. It is clarity. Attachment creates suffering because it ties your inner state to external conditions. When outcomes define your peace, you lose control. Success creates anxiety. Failure creates collapse. Approval becomes currency. Detachment restores balance. When you detach, you still care, but you are no longer controlled. You commit fully to your actions while releasing obsession with results. You give effort without clinging to outcome. This is inner stability. A detached mind is difficult to manipulate. Praise does not inflate it. Criticism does not shatter it. You remain centered because your identity is no longer outsourced to circumstances or opinions. Most emotional suffering comes from resisting reality, wanting things to be different than they are. Detachment allows acceptance without resignation. You stop fighting what is, and because of that, you can act more effectively. When you are attached, emotions distort perception. Decisions become reactive. But when you detach, perception clears. You see options instead of threats. This is control. Detachment does not remove ambition, it purifies it. You still aim high, but you move without desperation. You pursue excellence, not validation. The moment you release the need for control over outcomes, you gain control over yourself. And self-control is the highest form of power. The world is unstable by nature. People change, plans collapse, expectations break. If your peace depends on stability, you will never have peace. A centered mind does not demand a calm world. It creates calm internally. This is why external chaos does not disturb those who have trained their inner state. They have learned to anchor themselves. When pressure increases, they return to breath, posture, and awareness. Centering is a skill. It is built through repetition, bringing attention back again and again, back to the present moment, back to what can be controlled. When you are centered, your reactions slow. Your vision widens. Your words become measured. You stop wasting energy on panic, overthinking, and emotional spirals. Instead, you respond with precision. This is what makes certain individuals appear unbreakable. They are not stronger than others. They are more grounded. When criticism comes, they listen without collapsing. When conflict arises, they stand without aggression. When uncertainty appears, they adapt without fear. The centered mind understands a simple truth. You cannot control the world, but you can control your response to it. And response is where power lives. When your inner state is stable, you move through life with quiet authority, not because you dominate, but because you are aligned. Nothing outside has permission to control what is inside. Many people search for a final breakthrough, a moment when everything clicks and life becomes easy. But mastery does not work that way. There is no finish line where effort disappears and awareness becomes permanent. Mastery is not an event, it is a practice. Every day the mind must be trained again. Thoughts will arise, emotions will return, old patterns will attempt to reassert themselves. This is not failure, it is the nature of being human. The difference between those who grow and those who stagnate is consistency. A trained individual does not wait for perfect conditions. They practice awareness in ordinary moments, while walking, speaking, listening, breathing. They observe reactions as they arise. They correct gently, without judgment. This is discipline without aggression. Mastery requires humility. The moment you believe you have arrived, awareness weakens. The ego returns quietly, disguised as certainty. True practitioners remain students for life. Each challenge becomes training. Each discomfort becomes feedback. Each mistake becomes instruction. Over time, something profound happens. The mind becomes quieter, not because thoughts disappear, but because they no longer dominate. Emotional storms pass faster. Focus returns more easily. Presence becomes familiar. Life does not become easier, but you become stronger. And strength does not mean force, it means stability. This is the path of mastery, simple, demanding, and endlessly rewarding. Everything you experience in life passes through the mind. Your perception shapes reality. Your attention determines meaning. Your responses create consequences. When the mind is uncontrolled, life feels chaotic. When the mind is trained, life becomes deliberate. Control does not mean rigidity. It means alignment. You align thought with intention, emotion with awareness, action with values. From this alignment, clarity emerges. You no longer waste energy on unnecessary conflict. You stop chasing approval. You stop reacting to every provocation. Instead, you move with purpose. A controlled mind does not seek dominance. It embodies calm authority. People feel it without explanation. Your presence becomes steady. Your decisions become cleaner. Your direction becomes clear. This is not about becoming someone else. It is about returning to who you were before conditioning took over. When awareness leads, life follows. If you remember one truth from this hour, let it be this: you cannot control everything that happens to you, but you can control how you meet it. And that control changes everything. The moment you take responsibility for your inner world, the outer world begins to shift, not because it obeys you, but because you are no longer ruled by it. This is the quiet power of mastery. This is the freedom of discipline. This is the beginning of a life lived consciously. Control your mind, and you control your life.